Coogs house. Bowl selections are out. Houston gets their next door neighbor, and LSU is coming to town for the Kinder's Texas Bowl.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougs, daily podcast about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach, Parker Ainsworth. Whether you're a Houston fan or just a hater who came to step by, thank you for making Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day and making the Locked On Podcast Network the number one sports podcast network in the world. Thank you again so much for tuning in. If you want to join the conversation down below, but you don't know what to say, tell us. I guess we're talking about LSU today. What do you think about the beignets over in Louisiana? Today's show is brought to you for everybody's over at Game Time. We got more on that fun later, but if you want to get on the action, get tickets to the Kinder's Texas Bowl or any other things going on in and around Houston, make sure you go to Game Time. Use code COLLEGE, get $20 off your first purchase. Today, this is a bonus episode just about Houston, LSU, the kind of earliest storylines of this bowl game. And look, I, in full disclosure, kind of wanted this one. I wanted this one because it's in Houston. It's the best chance for the crowd to show out. I believe Duarte had it first. So I'm going to give him credit. If it was somebody else, I apologize. But I saw Duarte put out that the Alamo Bowl had actually publicly said, it sounds like, that one of the reasons they did not want Houston, they opted for a different option in the Alamo Bowl, was because they were worried about if Houston's fans would travel. Houston's football fans have kind of been or football stadium attendance, I should say, has kind of been a talking point nationally. Now, we've hit at different points how realistic that is or problem that is or whatever. And I'd point out Houston showed up in pretty big numbers for the Final Four last spring, but that's not really who are there. I think playing in Houston's a big win for Houston at the Texas Bowl. Getting to fill up NRG is fun. We've seen it with electric atmospheres before for Houston games. It's been a while, right, since they played Oklahoma, right? But that was truly incredible, right? And having something like that for a big-time matchup like this against a next-door neighbor of sorts in LSU is a big-time storyline. The other part of this that's hard to ignore is that Lane Kiffin is the face of LSU now. And that whole story, if you were not following the national college football discussion, was icky, gross, and very look at me, kind of guy, Lane Kiffin, which is not surprising given Lane Kiffin, right? I mean, they made a whole social media presence for his dog, only to find out when he left Ole Miss that might not have actually been his dog. That's a real story. That's a real thing. Got fired at the tarmac at USC. Got told to leave early when he was going to leave Alabama because he was being a distraction or whatever. Like all those different things. And I don't think that Al Davis is right about a whole lot, but Al Davis got rid of Lane Kiffin and has some thoughts about him, and maybe Al Davis is right. Anyway, he gets to LSU after kind of forcing Mississippi to kind of drag their feet on things, kind of pitted Mississippi and Florida and LSU all against one another, ultimately choosing a large paid at LSU. And I will say LSU is a gigantic job in this industry. It is a program that at Orgeron can win titles at LSU, right? Like that is the kind of program we're looking at when we look at like recruiting Louisiana and all of that. I will say that recruiting Louisiana is also a thing Houston's trying to do. And this game, interestingly, weighs a lot to me in that. Now, Lane Kiffin just got there, and I'm not saying he can't turn that thing around or whatever. I don't think he can get it done by the end of December, right? So he's going to be honestly coaching a relatively disinterested team with who knows what the roster is going to look like between opt-outs and transfer portal guys and guys saying that they're going to enter. And I know you don't formally enter until January, but you can always withdraw from a team with the intention to enter. That's why you see people announcing that they're going to enter well before then. This could be a gigantic win in a lot of ways for Houston because you could get a win over a nearby SEC caliber rival at a point where you're honestly might be kicking them while they're down in a lot of ways. I don't mean to say that I'm guaranteeing anything like that. We'll know a lot more about the roster LSU is bringing to this one as we get closer to it. I'm going to be breaking down a lot between now and December 27th. We got like 3 weeks. It's going to be a lot of content on Houston and LSU as we get there. But I will say, I would anticipate a sparsely filled out roster for LSU. And Willie Fritz said in his press conference on Sunday to the media that it sounds like they're not anticipating a whole lot of opt outs on Houston's side between guys that want to get like one last performance on tape before they go off the NFL draft and those kinds of things, or guys that have gone to Houston and want to stay. I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of guys. You'll see some. Like full disclosure, there will be some. There'll be some that are more eye-opening than others, and that are more, sting more than others. There will be some people leaving the Houston roster between now and the bowl game. There'll be some that leave it after it. But it won't be quite as eye-opening or shocking thing as AJ Haulcy leaving last spring after playing in the spring football game. He left notably to go to one LSU. Now, he didn't leave it wasn't like he was LSU the next day. He did do a little bit of a transfer portal recruiting process, ended up there. His availability in this game is what I'm watching, and not because I'm like vindictive or whatever. It adds a fun flair and storyline to this one as we follow it as fans. That Haulcy was an all Big 12 caliber player for Houston last year, goes to LSU. LSU's kind of fallen apart, flipping the script, turning all these things around. Houston's the program on the rise of these two, and suddenly Halsey's on the other side in the other uniform. Look, there are a lot of kids on these two teams that will have played with and against each other at various levels of high school and college football, especially given the current landscape of college football. Halsey is a particularly interesting case because he just played spring ball for the Cougs. Now, if he opts out in the Kiffin guy, he was not recruited by Kiffin for what it's worth. You could see him not playing this maybe, and we'll follow that as it happens too. But it'll be an interesting thing to watch here. Now, the other thing that's going to be interesting to watch here for a number of reasons is honestly, both of these programs are kind of at a interesting launch point in rebuilding. LSU kind of starting anew with Lane Kiffin. Willie Fritz in Houston is wrapping up an impressive 9-3 campaign, 9-3 in a Power 4 conference after going just 4-8 last year, and bringing in the top recruiting class in school history. And so you put those two together, they're looking at like they're moving forward. Yet LSU looking like they're moving forward. And these two teams match up in a non-conference matchup in 2027, also at NRG. Now, what's fascinating about that to me is, again, I believe I saw Duarte with this first. And so that's twice I've cited Duarte as having it first. And so I'll make sure I'm giving credit where it's due. But the committee for the Texas Bowl said that they did not take into account or didn't care to take into account. They knew it was the case, but didn't bother them that these two teams will be playing each other again in September of 2027. What's fascinating about that to me is this feels like this game and that game will be interesting barometers for how these two programs are growing between now and then. Obviously, LSU is kind of more close to that rock bottom point, assuming that people do the opt-outs and transfer outs that I'm anticipating happening. But you got to hit rock bottom to bounce back. The trampoline has to go down before it goes up, right? That's one of the things. And maybe no, okay, maybe it's not. Okay, but I say that to say that ultimately this game is a chance for Houston to do something special, and then turn around and do something to show growth between now and that September in 2027. I also would point out that as you're trying to win recruiting battles across the states of Texas and Louisiana, yes, Louisiana's going to throw dollar amounts at big name guys and 5 stars and this and that. But so many people in both states, in both regions, this is a part of the footprint that Willie Fritz is laying. Louisiana and greater Houston area is what Willie Fritz is trying to lay groundwork in for building his roster out and plant the seeds across both states. This would go a long way. Even if all the caveats, all the context, all the whatever, this would go a really, really long way in doing all that. And I'm excited about it because all these different storylines. I'm going to work on a couple different people to get some content out for you over the course of the next 3 weeks to get more out on that. Man, September 27th, Houston, LSU. I guess I should point out in the terms of the all-time deal here. LSU does lead the series 2-1. They played all of 3 times. They were all between 1996 and 2000. Houston did win one. I think Houston won the 99 game. We'll talk a little history and talk about the matchup as well, but these two programs are in much different places today than they were in the late 90s. Saban's there for the 2001, if I'm not mistaken, right? So a little bit different eras and vintages. Saban kind of kicked Lane Kiffin the curb more recently than that. But anyway, more each and every day at Locked On Cougs. Please hit subscribe to the bell so you know when things go live. Locked On Cougs, primarily Locked On Podcast Network. Means your team every day. Go Cougs.